Part 4 of the Grand Prix 3D car. It's starting to look like a car now. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies and welcome to part 4 of the Grand Prix 3D build that I'm doing right here. So the Grand Prix 3D car is a bespoke 3D printed car along the designs of the cigar shaped 1960s Grand Prix cars, so as in F1. So in this stage, I've already got the front suspension arms in. We did the shocks and we've done the front bulkhead, steering mechanism, and it's mounted on the chassis now. One of the things that I thought needed attention were the shocks are very, very tight. Now, after consulting with Andy, designer of the car, he suggested that I should drill out the shock bodies with a 2.5mm drill bit, just so that the thread on the shaft doesn't bind with the body, and at the moment it is binding quite a bit. So I'll take those off first before we go to the next step. I'll open them up and we'll make them a bit freer. Alright, so let's get some tools here. I'll take these shocks off. Okay, so let's release them there. I think with this lower one, just have to take the shaft out. So I need some pliers for that, so I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've got some needle nose pliers here. Just pull these out. Alright, so these shafts are holding in the shocks. I'll just put that top arm over there with that suspension arm. And same with this. Alright, so we've got the shocks off now. Pop this over here. Alright, so I just need to take this top screw out. Yep. Alright, so that cap should just come off. There we go. Just unscrew this from the base. Alright, so that's all come apart, springs there. So you can see how they're really tight. Take the shock shafts out. Alright, so there's that one there. Now the kit does include a couple of drill bits, but the largest it goes up to is a 2mm. So 2mm is for opening up the holes to accept the 2mm threaded screws. But here, Andy recommends a 2.5mm drill bit. Although I've got the benefit of having these drill bits here by God hand. So I've got the 2.5mm there, we'll give that a bit of a drill through. So So these were cut through really cleanly. As you can see, we're pretty much through it already. Let's do the other one. Run this through. And what I want to do is just make sure that this thread goes through. Okay, so that's much better now. It is smooth. You can hear the thread going across it, but it's much better than it was before. Alright, so that's an easy enough fix. Just make sure you have a 2.5mm drill bit for helping you do that. Alright, so just locate the hole, pop it in. Alright, so we're just going to put on the spring. And screw it back onto this cap here. Okay, so we've got movement in the shock now, which is a huge difference to before. And then as we press it a bit more, it actually starts bedding in and it's a bit smoother. Alright, so much better. Alright, let's continue with this one. Okay. Alright, feels good. Now I just make sure that we don't lose this tubing because that's starting to come out as I'm doing that. And if that doesn't seat properly, then we're not going to get our dampening effect. I think I've just made that. I think I've been a bit overzealous and pressed it too much. No, that's not going to work. Alright, so we're going to have to unscrew that. Alright, so that's the tubing there, that clear bit of tubing. It's really important that that sits over the top of the head of the screw. And presses down over the top. Okay, so you're just going to make sure that's all seated. And let's tighten that up again. And we won't go happy, happy, joy, joy and press it too hard and get it unseated again. As we know that it's all smooth now. Alright, so it's good. Let's just pop this back in place and screw it together. Alright, so that's what we want. Moving shock like that. This one's come out as well, so that was a learning experience. Alright, so that's in place. Same thing again, just screw it up. Alright, there we go. Okay, that was easy enough fix. Now let's just get our driver here, and we'll put these shocks back together. Alright, we'll quickly put these back on the arms, and then we can move on to our next step. Alright, so let's get these shafts in here. Give it a bit of gentle persuasion. Got these the right way around? I've got a feeling I might have these the wrong way around. Let's just double check our manual here. Oh. Alright, so go back to our front suspension. Alright, so I've got them upside down, so that's probably why it doesn't want to go in. Let's do this. Alright, let's just prepare this one as well. Probably would have helped if I had a small hammer. Alright, that's going in. Alright, so it's homed in. Let's just make sure this one homes in. I think I just don't have it in the right spot. Let's see if I can pull it through here. Oh, there we go. Too far, here we go, in we go. Alright, so it's in. This one just needs to go in a little bit more. Alright, so I've got those all together. And now it's just a matter of screwing it back into the top arm. Alright, that one's in. All right, there we go. So now, instead of being really stiff, we've got the shocks working. All right, that's great. Now let's work onto the next step, which is the dashboard. So dashboard, let's see where we're at. I think I had it over here. Let's go to section 4, which is the dashboard. All right, let's pop that aside over here and open up this with all the bits. Okay, so there's some hardware. All right, so speed controller. I'm going to have to get a speed controller at some stage, but at the moment, we'll leave that out. Let's see. Transponder switch trays, there's an option there. All right, so we've got type 1 and type 2. Right, so at this stage, this is where the speed controller will be fitted in the front end, and there's an option on the dashboard on where to put the switch. So let's see, temporarily remove the steering column collar. Okay, which is this part here. Now type 1 and the type 2. Okay, so there's two types of receiver trays, depending on your receiver size and your wires. So type 1 slopes inwards and is shorter. All right, so for the moment, I think I'll just do, let's do type 1, just to have this built. All right, let's see, where are they? So we've got, I think that's type 1. And that's type 2. Okay, so if we put in type 1, so that fits in here. So it is angled slightly, like so, and then the other type is flatter. All right, so let's just leave that one in there for the moment. Now before I do that, it's recommended that you coil the wire up so it makes it nice and neat. So I'll just pop this out of the way first. All right, so if we just fold this and make sure it fits within this area here. Should make it nice and neat. So the wires don't hang around everywhere. All right, so let's just continue doing that out here, where it's a bit easier to control. Alright, so hopefully that's enough. Need a little bit hanging out. Alright, so that should fit in here. Oh. Let's bend that again. Alright. Now let's try and get that all to fit within here nice and neatly. After bending it like this, is a bit like a spring. Alright, so we'll hold that in place. Pop this in here. Is that the one I wanted to use? No, actually I want to use this one. Alright, I haven't quite got it right. Probably would have been better if I'd had it on a different angle. Let's pop that out. See if I can straighten that up a little bit. Alright, that's more like it. Press it down flat. And then this little tab here will hold the wire in place. And there we go. Right, so there you have your shortened wire. So this hopefully should just plug into your receiver like so. Alright, so I've got that part there. Okay, so you need double-sided tape for your receiver. I'm going to retrofit that later. And then that's where we can check the steering centering as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. So we're doing the dashboard mounts. Okay, let's move this aside. For dashboard mounts, we're going to need these components. Won't be needing that part, so let's put it aside. Well, there's a dashboard, won't be needing that. There's these parts here. And then some screws. Alright, so two 2x12s. Two countersunk 2x10s. And a 2x4. So there's a 2x4 there. Okay. Alright, so we're mounting the countersunks on first. So it's going to be over here. Alright, so we're going to screw this onto the chassis. So now I'll go there. Alright, let's just get my 2mm bit ready. Let's swap this over, don't need this 2.5 anymore. Let's change the collet out of my pin vise. Alright, so I'm just going to open up these holes here. Okay, and this one here as well. Pretty sure, yep. It's important to open up these holes because if you don't, the thread's going to bite here and it's not going to be able to tension up properly. Alright, so there we have that. This one will be living on this side. And then we have these sides as well. So again, we'll need to open these up. That's pretty open already. This one as well. Okay, so the countersunks are going to go through the front. That's the wrong screw. Oh, that's better. Alright, so I just slowly tap that in first. Alright, so that's holding that in place. I'll do the same for the other side. And then we'll start guiding these up as well. Okay, so these are the 2x12s going in here. Now putting these on loosely, it means that once they're in place you can tighten them up and they won't move out of place. Alright, so I just screw these in carefully so they're nice and tightened up. Okay, so it's locked in place. And then we'll finalise up the countersunks. And then the small screw goes on the side here. Now this from memory is actually part of the battery retaining system. Oh, don't want to lose these. Okay, so that's this. No. So with this smaller screw, only needs to be partially in. So basically I'll just put in about there and we'll adjust that at a later stage. Alright, so we'll just move on to the next step, which is step 6, and that's the dashboard. Okay, so we have our dashboard right there. And then we've got the backing plate. Various instruments, so big one, small ones, and 3 1 and 1.6 hex bolts by 5, so these little tiny ones. Okay, we've got those. All right, so next step. All right, so we're basically screwing in the instruments here. All right, so making sure which one's the front. So textured side is the front. Just press these through. And then that will match up with the backing plate there. And the screws from the other end will hold all these instruments in place. Okay. So again, I'm just screwing these up partial way, and then I'll tighten them up fully at the end. All right, so let's tighten them up. Okay, there you go. Instruments in place. It's got 3 silver coloured instrument bezels. And that's it for that part. Let's move on. Okay, so these are the stickers. Now the stickers, where are they? I thought I saw them here before. All right, so they're the instrument stickers there. Actually, I think I'll do the stickers later because I will be pulling this apart again. So let's just leave it the way it is. It still looks okay. All right, so that's applying the stickers. We'll come back to that later. All right, so we're going to prepare the rest of the parts. All right, so we've got that we've already completed. There's a couple of dummy switches. And switch retainers. I guess that's if we're using the switch retainers. And then we need 2 of the longer bolts, which are these. Okay. All right, so basically we're going to be sandwiching this onto here, which means, let's see. So we have to drill out the 2 mounting holes in the dashboard. All right, so let's do that. Mount the dashboard using the screws. All right, so that's going to go through here. So we're going to use the dummy switches for the moment. So it needs to protrude through the rectangular slot and just a little out of the front of the dashboard. Okay, so I'm guessing that's going to stick in like this. Then this is going to be sandwiching it all together. Okay, all right, so let's do as suggested. We're going to screw this through. Okay, so we're going to screw these screws all the way through this support until it's just about flush or just slightly protruding, because we still need to screw through the dummy switch retainers. So you might see just here, it's only just showing through. So that's where I'm going to leave it for the moment. Do the same for the other side. Let's have a look here. There we go, just protruding. All right, so with the dummy switches, now you've got the option of actually using a small switch, which is the same size as this on a speed controller, which means when you put it into one of these sides, you can actually switch it on and off at the dashboard. But since we haven't mounted our radio yet, I'm just going to put those in there for the moment, just for looks, and we'll put in the radio at a later stage. Right, so basically this is what's going to happen. This thing here is going to clamp it all together. All right, so we'll just start screwing it all up now. Okay, so that's nice and tight, and you can see now, so this black part here is actually holding this dummy switch in place, If you had a real switch, then that'll be holding the real switch in place. So you have your options of having the switch on this side or the other side. Now I'm going to do the dummy switch again, so we'll stick the dummy switch on this side. And again, this is going to clamp it all together. Okay, so there we go. So we have our dashboards mounted in place. You have the 3 dials, they're in the silver color. And then on this side, you see the 2 dummy switches. Now, you can choose to have a micro switch on this side or this side. And that just allows you can put your finger inside and switch the car on or off just before you use it. So it's up to you. Depends on the shape of the switch as well. If it's not this shape, then you have to work out to put the switch elsewhere. But for the sake of just building the car for the moment, this looks pretty good. We'll use a dummy switch on both sides. Okay, so that's all screwed up. So again, this is describing the different uses of switches. So if your switches were too big, then obviously you'll need these dummy switches just to fill in the gaps. And that's pretty much it there. So there we go. So that is the dashboard completed. All right, so we've got our suspension on. Okay, so we fixed up the tightness of the shocks earlier, so they're actually working now. So if I press these, you see the springs compressing, like so. Which is all pretty good. And then we've got the bulkheads all mounted on the chassis, and now the dashboard's in. Okay, so we're going to move on to part 5 next time around. So that's going to be, actually I don't know what that's going to be, let's find out. So next part is going to be the engine. So the engine's going to be pretty spectacular, I think. That'll be the motor and all the gearbox being put inside. Okay, so here you go. That's where we're at with the Grand Prix 3D car. It's starting to look like a car now. Got all the dashboard inside. And it's a fair size too, because we're going to do the engine next. It's going to be this long. Okay, so thanks again for joining me. Look forward to seeing you come by and watch me build the next part. So see you next time.